It's a mighty throat clear you have there.
It was mighty, eh?
It was mighty. It's mighty and throaty. I think that might be the only legitimate time I've ever used the phrase throaty.
Yeah, I can't say I've used that one before.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a legitimate term, right? Like it's got to be. And how else would you describe a mighty throat clear?
Yeah, well, that's probably a legit term. Like someone's got a throaty voice.
Yeah.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I feel uncomfortable saying it.
It's one of those things. Like I need to speak to an adult and make sure this is okay. Yeah. Well, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good. Just traversing these roads out here. That's all.
Yeah. Keeping the blacktop hot.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, I know what you mean. This week has been full of travels on my end too. So keeping the skies busy, so to speak, and back and forth from Dallas. So fun times.
Yeah.
Which all of that kind of explains why we are a bit tardy to the party with putting out this episode. Normally we put out our episodes on Sunday, but we are coming to you from a illustrious Arkansas evening. Well, I am. Matt's not. He's traveling. He's out of Arkansas, and so this is a Tuesday night. You're getting us late, so to speak. So apologies to everyone who expected to see this pop up in their feeds on Sunday, but we put out an episode once a week, and we've done that reliably so for the last couple of years, because this is episode 221 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast that we do. And so I think that we're doing a pretty good job. Even if we're like a few days late, we're still going to meet our once a week standard. And I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
So, it's sometimes you got to postpone things because life happens. And speaking of life, at least for this one, I am and have been Mr. Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And we're glad to be back with you. Some good news and bad news, right? Like, and it all wraps up into the same thing. Craig is going to be back next week. He sent me a message. He's like, there's a good chance I'll be able to do it Sunday. And that's awesome. But it's bittersweet, right? Because those of you who listen to the show, you heard him on here 2 episodes ago, I think. You know that the reason he has been absent is because he's been helping take care of his mother on weekends. She was fighting cancer, and she unfortunately passed away this last week. So Craig is going to be back, and that's awesome, and we're going to love to have him. But we want to send a whole lot of love out to him and his family, and just he's our brother, and we mean that in every way, shape, and form of the word. He is our brother, and when he hurts, we hurt. So we wish him nothing but peace and comfort. And it'll be good to hear his voice again. But I absolutely hate the circumstances under which it's happening, if that makes sense. So hate to start the show off on that kind of a down note, but I do believe in the power of positivity, right? Like I do believe in that the people who listen to this show, they want to send condolences and love out, even if it's just a nice thought. I think that has value and power. So I hope that everyone joins me in doing that, and he'll feel it one way or the other. So because that's love, and I especially in this tumultuous world, I need to believe in love. So, and I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's true. So, but since we've put that to the side and we're doing that, but let's lift it up some. Let's talk about some funny books, some comics this week. It's why we're here. Nothing excites me more than to get to talk about this with some of my best friends. It is fun. It's enjoyable. It's why we do this podcast. For those of you who might be new to the show, maybe this is your first episode. So sorry to break you in on the down note, but what we do is we talk about comics and comics related materials. It's a lot of fun. We love it. It's how we all became friends. We're a couple of dudes from Central Arkansas who met and bonded, and we just decided to, hey, we're talking about these books. We're talking about the merits of this sequential art form. Let's put it out on a podcast. And we've done so for a long time now. And it's great. It's the highlight of my week, no matter what day it falls on. So we're going to kick this thing off by giving you a little bit of a taste, a little appetizer, so to speak, of what we've been reading. We call it our short stack. It's, just like a set of pancakes. We have read. We're going to talk about 3 comics that we have read. We might have liked them, we might have not, but just give you a little taste of it. So Matt, kick us off with that, brother. Tell me about 3 things you read this week.
Number one on my short stack from DC, as I continue to read the Batman the Night by Chip Zdarsky, and the rest of the crew being Carmine Di Gianmondomingo, colors by Ivan Placentia, I believe is how that's pronounced. In this issue, of course, this is again young Bruce Wayne. He leaves Gotham City to go essentially train himself to eventually become the Batman. And this issue is when he's really learning about the detective work and how to do detective work stealthily. And,
Right.
he has some hard lessons in this book. And it also touches on like how he may or may not have mishandled the situation leaving Gotham as it relates to Alfred. So yeah, again, Chip Zdarsky, very dependable, and here's another example of where he's delivering. I just realized my entire short stack is all DC Comics, actually. The other 2 books of mine are actually from the same series. I went and dug up an old series I found online. And on the show before, I had spoken of previously a Batman Judge Dredd crossover.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I loved, it's one of my favorite things ever. I went and found several other Batman Judge Dredd crossovers that followed that one that I reviewed the first time. Judgment in Gotham was the first one. So I went back and read Batman Judge Dredd Die Laughing. This is by Alan Grant, John Wagner. And the interiors of this one is mostly Glenn Fabry.
Really? Okay.
So yeah,
cool.
that's why I decided to talk about this one in my short stack, is that it is got interiors by Glenn Fabry. That's not something that happened very often at all in his career. He's mostly doing covers. So it was really, when I bought the book, I didn't realize that. It was really interesting to go back and read this and get so much Glenn Fabry art, because you're usually, we're all just accustomed to seeing it on covers. Not to mention how, not just that he's doing art, but that it's part of, you get to see his storytelling process, as a part of it.
Right.
And this book came out in 1998. So that was book 1. There's a book 2. These are prestige format books. The second parter in this series is the Glenn Fabry does not do the interiors. The interiors are done by Jim Murray. I'm not familiar with Jim Murray, but this is also painted interiors. And it frankly looks like a marriage between Simon Bisley and Glenn Fabry. The coloring is, the coloring looks both Simon Bisley and Glenn Fabry, as does the characterizations. Very cartoony, very distorted, very over the top. Really interesting stuff to look at. So anybody that is a fan of Glenn Fabry, I recommend going and picking this up. Because you get to see him at work doing some storytelling. And then the second part of this, being this artist I was unfamiliar with, it's just really fun stuff to look at. And I'd be really interested to know if this was how much of this was computer painted, how much of this is computer art versus traditional, because it's just got such a slick look to it. It's got a very good, dynamic, cartoony, violent storytelling with a very slick painted look to it. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to go comb the depths of YouTube and see if we can't scrounge up any kind of interview that he's done where he's talked about that. Surely it's out there in some form or another.
Yeah, I was going to look into it myself eventually once I had time to stop and do so.
So I'm kind of jealous and a little bit gobsmacked. I don't know that I've ever seen any Glenn Fabry interiors. I'm gonna have to check this out. I mean, so I know him kind of the way I imagine everybody else knows him from the Preacher covers. Um,
Mhm.
and
I know he's done some interior art throughout his career, but it's just been minimal. And
yeah.
I can't recall actually ever reading anything that he did uh, interior art wise.
Well, that's dope, dude. Like now I'm
Yeah.
enticed and curious, like a
Yeah.
little monkey.
Yeah.
So my short stack, my short stack's going to be more contemporary and new stuff, right? Like this is all stuff that I've read over the past week. Like I said, I did some traveling. Before I get to my short stack, though, little fun trivia, fun fact for you, Matt. The Airbnb that I stayed in Dallas this past weekend, it overlooked the Dallas City Hall. Do you know
Mm.
what pop culture reference or that the Dallas City Hall appeared in a film?
Pop culture reference?
Yeah.
Like, was this current? Is this something current?
No, it would have been early 90s, maybe late 80s.
No, I don't know.
So Dallas City Hall, the building that it sits in, is actually the same building that they used in the RoboCop film. Um, as like
Oh,
as the
wow.
headquarters. Yeah. So my Airbnb just overlooked RoboCop headquarters the entire time I
Oh,
was in Dallas.
wow.
So I was just looking out the window out at that the whole time, and it was great. So
Oh, my
um,
gosh.
weird little neat fun fact. So, but comics, right? More contemporary stuff. Read on the plane coming, which was a very short plane ride. First and foremost, which was the biggest thing that I read this week, is Alison Bechdel's newest graphic memoir. It's called The Secret to Superhuman Strength. Interesting book, neat book, very slow. I don't think it is up to par with her other stuff that she's done like Fun Home and Dykes to Watch Out For, which I'm a big fan of her prior work. But it was interesting. Like she plays in a couple of sandboxes. She links the concepts of her lifelong obsession with exercise and to literary transcendentalists to Buddhism. This whole thing situated in the betterment and enlightenment of oneself, and she wraps it into like her life narrative. It was pretty cool. If you're into graphic memoirs and nonfiction, check out Alison Bechdel's stuff. Definitely go check out Fun Home, but check out her newest work. It was Eisner nominated this year. Not that anybody gives a shit about my opinion. I don't know that it needed to be Eisner nominated. There's definitely better stuff that I read this year, but it was still worth the read and a very good book. Second on my little short stack was what appears to be the last issue of a book out of Top Cow and Image that I've really enjoyed, and I didn't know that I would when I first read it. But it's called A Man Among Ye. This is Stephanie Phillips, Josh Jorge, John Calix, and Troy Petrie. Again, it's a pirate book. It's based off of real life pirates. Anne Bonny is the main character, and she links up with all these different women. If you've seen Black Sails, you should be familiar with most of these characters. If you haven't, go watch Black Sails. That's your homework for the week. And then last but not least, and this is a book, Matt, I want to send over your way. I don't know that you got it, but I think that you would just really enjoy it. It's called World War III: Battle Over Hokkaido. It's by legendary manga writer and artist, mangaka or whatever you call them, Motofumi Kobayashi. Huge fan of it. This is some incredibly gorgeous penciled line work of just dogfights. It's a war. It's military fighter jets doing amazing things. And it's just a war story. It's fictionalized because again, it's World War III. It's a war that never seemed to happen, or takes place in what could have been World War III. Some of it's realistic, some of it's fableized. It's cool warfare. So I'll send it your way. It is manga, so you got to read it right to left. But it's even if you just want to look at the pictures, man, it's stunning draftsmanship, gorgeous line work. And look, if you're a fan of war comics, which I know that you are, I think that you will at least enjoy the visage of this.
Nice.
So I'm going to encourage you to pick that up, but I will slip it your way like a pusher, like a drug pusher, and get you addicted.
Nice.
So, dude, good books all around. Like now I feel like I've got homework. I gave you homework, which is the way that these conversations should go. That's what Comics Talk's all about. So, you want to break into what our roundtable this week is?
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like it's a good time to. So we got together as per the usual, and we decided to pick out a book to read together. Like not together because we're in separate places. So it wasn't like the good old days where we were in our like our underoos and our really cool pajamas and sitting on the floor hanging out. Although I think we should do that. That's just my personal opinion. But we picked up the same book and we decided to read it simultaneously and then talk about it on the show. That's normally what we do, as you guys know. And it's fun times because we get to bounce ideas back and forth off, each other. And, sometimes we come at these books from different places. And sometimes we end up not coming together on them, which is totally fine. That's totally cool. So this week, like most other weeks, we got together and we said, let's check this out. And Matt actually picked out this book, and I'm really, really glad he did. But he decided that we should, stick with the House of DC, which apparently Matt is just like DC obsessed this week. Like that just warms my heart to hear.
Stars aligned.
I mean, just one of those things. And Matt, you picked out World's Finest by Mark Waid, Dan Mora, with colors by Tamara Bonvillain. Or I don't know if it's Bonvillain or Bonvillain. Like part of me wants it to be Bonvillain because that sounds badass.
Yeah, but which means it probably isn't.
Yeah, but I mean, even if it's French, Bonvillain, I mean, that's pretty badass too. So I don't know. Either way, it's a win, right? So
yeah.
So just give me kind of the skinny on this, man. How did this book treat you?
So I thought this was a well done book, like a total callback to, Silver Age, I guess is what was what this felt like. I mean, this felt like a total classic Batman Superman story, or I could just say DC story. It doesn't feel like it fits into what's going on with DC right now at all.
Yeah, no, dude, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you took the word that I like immediately came to mind was this feels classic. It feels, and even more than classic, it feels timeless, I think. The art has a little bit of a retro flair to it. If you've ever seen Dan Mora's art, you know kind of what that feels like. It both recalls an earlier era of comic book art, but it also is very modern in its sensibilities. He's a great artist. So I thought it was fun. And the story in and of itself was just a easy to pick up on, easy to latch on to superhero adventure story that could happen anywhere, anytime. But it also plays on nostalgia a little bit, which I really enjoyed because it's got a throwback feel to it. So same. So I mean, you didn't really, you said kind of what it appeared to you. Did you enjoy it?
I mean, I liked it, but the only thing, my hang up with it is the way Batman and Superman's, I guess you would say, their interactions, their relationship was portrayed in here. I didn't care for, because it doesn't feel loyal to the character of Batman, frankly.
Okay.
But that Batman has been a lot of different things throughout the years, so that could also just be my preference showing through more than anything.
Right.
We can, after, I can explain my justification for that, once we really get into discussing the book. But yeah, that's that. Other than that, I thought the story was written well. I mean, I thought it was easy to read. I enjoyed the timelessness of it, kind of like you referred to. So there was plenty about the book that I thought was done really well.
Well, perfect. Well, let's do that then. Let's get into the book because and I agree with you. I think it was done really well. I enjoyed it. I think I probably enjoyed it more than you did, which is totally fine. This was Saturday morning cartoons for me. That's what it felt like. So I just ate this up. So before we really begin, though, I do got to say, for those of you who maybe you haven't picked this book up and you want to, or it's sitting in your stack, maybe you're waiting on your DCBS box, what have you, we're going to spoil some things because that's really the only way to talk about the meat and potatoes of this comic, to really get into, any of the comics. And from here on out, the books that we're going to talk about. So, fair warning, expect spoilers. Check the show notes. I always put the titles in there to what we're going to talk about. And if you want to read them and you don't want to kind of know what we think about them, or have some of the plot ruined for you beforehand, that's fine. Just hit the pause button. Come back and listen to it later. We don't want to jack up anybody's experience with this. That's not what we do, and we don't think that's cool. We wouldn't want anybody to do that to us, and we don't want to do that for you. So go check out the show notes while you're listening to this part real quick, and just real quick, come back after you've read it. It's super easy. Luckily, podcasts are just there waiting on you. That's how they work. So let's get into it real quick. All right, so this story actually is a Batman Superman team up story, like the best world's finest stories are. All of them are, and it takes place in Metropolis. And again, I think it's always super interesting to see Batman out of Gotham. Most of the time, I don't think it works. Sometimes they surprise me and it does. This was, for me, one of the times that it actually worked, where he's outside of Gotham. So Metropolis is, it's Superman's hangout. Like, you can't steal a quarter in Metropolis without getting busted. So you don't have a lot of big crime that you would expect to take place there. Or when crime does take place there, it's huge. Like, it's momentous. Usually Lex Luthor has done something just astoundingly stupid, and this is world-changing stuff. As is what's happening here today. The city has been besieged, beset upon by one Miss Poison Ivy, of Batman Rogues Gallery fame. She's you could call her an eco-terrorist, you can call her a lot of things, but she's just pissed, and she sounds like she's here to prove a point. She was sent here by some shrouded, clouded figure. We don't know who it is, but she's basically going to use this opportunity to scold the entire city, Superman City, for destroying the green, for their infringements upon the natural world. And she's going to take a lot of human life to do it, which is, not cool. But she's in Metropolis. She's not in Gotham. And so she is incredibly surprised when, lo and behold, Batman and Robin show up, and she, like, what are you guys doing here? I was trying to get Big Blue's attention, and this is like, you guys are way out of your element. What the hell? At the same time that they convert, that Batman and Robin, can't forget about Robin, as he shows up and reminds everybody that he's there, they quickly ensnare Poison Ivy, kind of lock her down. It seems like maybe this fight was over before it started. Soups rolls in and is carrying a small child who he's rescued, and they all converge on this at once. Seems like it's done, right? But it's not, because Poison Ivy is working. She's working with a partner who is a member of Superman's Rogue Gallery, a very fearsome opponent of Superman's, one powered by kryptonite, lifeless, soulless, heartless. It's Metallo. And if you've read some of those really good Metallo Superman fights, and the fact that he's powered by kryptonite, that should tell you something. He's not somebody that's easy to reckon with. And so this catches everybody off guard, because they did not expect Poison Ivy, who's almost somebody who runs completely off of emotion, completely off of just anger, and this very natural flair, to be teamed up with somebody like Metallo, who is the very antithesis of nature. He's very mechanical. He's a destructive force, and he catches them off guard. And while they scramble to team up, of course, Poison Ivy breaks loose, and now they're rocked back on their heels, and one heck of a fight kind of kicks off. Poison Ivy is able to distract Batman by ensnaring Robin, and kind of takes him off the board for a second. Well, while this happens, Metallo jams a syringe. One thinks a very I wonder what kind of metal this would be to actually permeate Superman's skin, but jams a syringe full of red kryptonite right into Clark Kent's chest. Just boom, right there. And then shoves this red kryptonite, this cocktail of red kryptonite, into his body, which, if you know what red kryptonite does, it makes the man go insane. He just starts to morph, and his body starts doing weird things, and his mind goes crazy. And, he starts to just freak out, for lack of a better word. but anytime you hear Superman scream, like even though I've read comics forever, we've seen these moments, I still get goosebumps because that's just not a thing that happens. Well, Metallo makes him scream, and the same effect that it has on me as a reader, it has on Batman and Robin, and they just immediately just up the level. Like they just go ahead and put Poison Ivy down, knock her unconscious real quick, like they're done playing around, and they just tackle Metallo. Robin actually slams his staff right into Metallo's chest. Like they very quickly break it down, which shows you where Batman's at. He's always capable of elevating things. It's one of those things, like once he's done playing with you, he's done. It's incredible to see. And as Superman is just writhing in pain and starts to glow from this red kryptonite radiation, you see some shrouded figures. Somebody with horns. You don't really know who he is. You might can guess, down there and saying, "Hey, now the fun begins," and they have no idea what's in store. So this is the person who orchestrated this whole thing and put this whole thing into action. This is where the story goes a little retro and takes us back in time a little bit. It jumps back years before this attack happens, in the early days of Batman and Superman's relationship. And, Bruce is chilling in his Batcave. Alfred's serving him tea. They're working a case together. The Penguin has started, he's upped his game a little bit. He's going from just being a low level gun runner and smuggler to, he's kidnapped Robin and is doing the whole, hanging Robin over the smelting pot of a, molten metal vat, in order to get their attention. But he's started selling these otherworldly weapons, it seems like, and they're trying to figure out how he did this, because it's not his MO, right? It turns out that Penguin, in this prior history, was introduced to these people called the anti-universe of Quard, these soldiers from there, and they're able to weaponize lightning. And he met these people through one Mr. Lex Luthor. Every good Superman story has got a Lex tied to it. That's kind of how this came into it. They've got these weapons that are lightning weapons, which, theoretically could end Batman. He's just a dude in a suit. But in this particular instance, because of the Lex Luthor connection, Superman has actually came to Gotham. And they do their thing. There's a fight. They, some really cool action scenes are drawn by Dan Mora. I don't have to walk you through it. You ought to know, what to kind of expect from that. You see some of Superman's powers as he tackles these folks, and just generally does Superman type things. but it establishes that, these two men are supposed to have each other's backs, and this is the beginning of that friendship, and it plants the seeds of that trust, so to speak, which years later, while Superman is just writhing in agony after having the syringe full of red kryptonite pumped into his chest, that is the relationship that inevitably Bruce is able to rely on to save him, or to at least talk him down off the ledge. Because as he's seeing all of these hallucinations where people around him are Lex Luthor, people around him are Zod, and he starts freaking out trying to fight all of these big bads that aren't really there, and of course wrecking shop. And he's Superman, right? So he's able to, the dude could punch a hole in the planet if he's not careful, and he's out of his mind. While he's doing that, though, fun nod to DC continuity as it is, a team shows up that, if you are a fan of pop culture television that we have now, some of the DC shows, this team is the Doom Patrol. Grant Morrison's famous folks, Cliff Steele's as Robot Man. You've got Rita Farr, Larry Trainer, and of course the radio Negative Man, who has radioactive power. They're just apparently bebopping around Metropolis for some reason. Why not? Of course they can kind of do what they want. So they jump in to try to help, and they're able to concoct a plan, and basically through the power of friendship, it feels like a My Little Pony moment. Through the power of friendship, they are able to talk Bruce down, and are not Clark down. They're able to talk Superman down to just calm down for just a second, to the point that they can get the Negative Man in action to scramble his system, which will give them the ability to at least sedate him and work on him a little bit. And that's kind of all I'll give you with that. That's your basic plot of the story. Again, all the elements of a fun story, action, adventure. The threat feels to me as real as any of these threats do. Love the flashback moment. Again, for me, this was Saturday morning cartoons. This was Mark Waid, right? Like this felt like Mark Waid, just kind of doing what we have always known him to do in some of his best stories with these characters. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. It kind of just made me giddy to loop around with these guys and feel. I want to get into what you thought, because it actually, I think I can piggyback off that with one of the, I won't call it a complaint, but just one of the things that I felt was lacking in this. And actually might have been a better use of some tangential characters. So why don't you kind of get into what you were talking about earlier, Matt, and just kind of tell me, like you said earlier, explain your justification. By no means do you have to justify anything. These are your opinions and stuff. So, I appreciate them. So just kind of get into what you thought about it.
Well, so just the way that Batman, the way that Batman talks to Superman, just felt out of character to me. He's just way too. He talks to him like way too much like they're close and personal friends, and not essentially co-workers.
Yeah,
because all the most compelling Batman Superman interactions to me is, Batman and Superman are motivated by two very different things, and they see things very different ways. So, it's a much more compelling story when they're working together. They do trust one another, but begrudgingly so. Superman constantly has to feel like he has to keep an eye on Batman to keep Batman from being too heavy-handed. And Batman basically resents Superman.
I was going to say carries kryptonite around in his belt.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stories of that, and that's a good example of Batman just side-eyeing Superman because he is so powerful and he is capable of so much. It just it's unnerving to Batman for someone to have, essentially what seems to be limitless power.
Yeah.
So, it's just so much more compelling to me when they are begrudgingly working together. Batman is somewhat standoffish to Superman. But in this book, he's talking to him like they're legitimately close friends that actually want to spend time together. That's not how that relationship really works at its most compelling nature, because it ignores to me at least, it ignores the core drivers of Batman and why that doesn't line up with Superman. It's way too easy to make it a super friend situation, and not nearly as compelling when it's not. To me anyway.
Yeah. So first off, 100% get where you're coming from. And you said earlier, it's just kind of one of those preference things. And I think that's probably it. I come from a little bit of a different place to where I actually like the fact that they, in some of the stories that I like of these two, they really are like, they have this brotherly bond, even though they come from separate places and they have different motivations. And you're right. They are two people who, at any given moment, Superman has to, he doesn't like the fact that Batman will break dudes' legs to get information. And Batman doesn't like the fact that Superman could, go insane and break the world. But there's so many of these really great stories, and maybe they are a little bit super friendish. I like the heart of those, specifically, and like when you get into this modern era, when you talk about Damian Wayne and John Kent, the Super Sons, how they start to develop this bond that I think was born out of their dad's relationships, that out of their father's friendship, and they become the Super Sons. And I think that they emulate a lot of their father's kind of boiled, like their essence boiled down into who they are. So yeah, I think I think I 100% get what you're saying, and I like it. I like that aspect of it. I like the less serious aspect of it, and I think that goes to show I won't say dichotomy. I think dichotomy is the wrong word. The strata that DC Comics can be, because you can have these, DC Comics can be the adventures of Batman, and DC Comics can be the Dark Knight Returns, right? Like, so you can have these different stories with these different tones, featuring these same characters, and maybe on some level they're for different age groups, but I like that they can be both, and I like that both can exist simultaneously. I will say though that what you're saying, and the way that it was Superman, or it was Batman who had that talk with Superman and stuff, there were characters in this story that I think would have been better served to have that. And it would have really shown the humanity of Superman, and the fact that these people around him, how important they are. You only see a brief glimpse of Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen in the story. They are there. They come into play a little bit, but they're quickly like moved out of the way because the situation is so dangerous. But for me, I think that it could have pleased both of us if you had a situation where Batman did what Batman had to do to lower the danger, and a character like Jimmy Olsen came in to have that conversation, to have that heart to heart, or a character like Lois Lane stepped in to talk to her husband and get him to do that thing where he stops, and it breaks through that vision, it breaks through that psychosis, and he's connecting with his wife, and he has to breathe for a moment. You give me Lois Lane or Jimmy Olsen doing that in this book, and it all of a sudden becomes way, you use the word compelling. I think that becomes a more compelling environment, specifically because of the nuances of those situations that we talk about. And you can even have Bruce playing into that, but I think that you humanize it even more when it's not a character who is meant to be in those situations. Like, there's some amazing moments where Jimmy Olsen has to do that, right? And they are like, that to me is what makes the Superman story. So it's like, as an adult, like, we've had that conversation where I say that I didn't understand Superman for a very long time, and it took me realizing that the heart of his stories were the people around him. And they were his heart, because he is a Boy Scout, and he has the ability to do anything he wants to, but he chooses right. Like, he has this like down home, quote unquote all American, but I think just good ethics. But he surrounds himself with the people that also keep him on the level, and I think that would have, to me, worked better. But hey, that's not the story that Mark Waid wanted to tell. Like, he wanted to write in, to make this, to truly focus on the relationship between Clark and Bruce. So, and I can't be mad at that, because it just, and it doesn't sound like you appreciated and enjoyed it, but I think it's fun regardless. It felt like a world's finest story, to me. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Dan Moore's art.
Yeah, the art was great. Yeah,
dude, there's so much seated in here. At one moment, I feel like I'm looking at something that is, it's classic in the sense that I don't even know how to really describe it. It's got this old school feel, this animated feel to it, and then other times he's drawing Batman, and I'm like, oh, there's Norm Brayfogle in there, and you see those two things juxtaposed. It's so, but they're blended together so well. It is spectacular. He's such a good penciler, and he's got such a style. Like, it is so. It is house style, but it's not house style. Like, the dude transcends the boundaries and the borders of the labels that we give to this art. And I have a really hard time really, really hard time describing it. To the point that like I said, it's just truly difficult. And the man shows off in this book. Like, you get to see his designs for everybody. You know, it's like there's a little bit of Terry Brooks in this when I look at it. It's just, it's incredible. I love the way that he draws Metallo. I love the way that he draws Superman's skeleton when he's being irradiated. That's got this gruesome feel, and to go from that gruesome feel to something more pure and cartoony, you know, is really, really interesting. He's a very adept artist. Like, there's some great pinups in this book. I wonder, I'm not familiar with how Dan Mora produces art. I wonder if he is a traditional artist or if this is digital stuff, because I would buy that scene of, you know, the first page that you see of the flashback where Alfred's serving tea to Batman, and you've got the T-Rex and all the cars behind him, and you have Superman doing the classic, like, opening up his button-up shirt to see the big S. I would buy that in a heartbeat. Like, that is quintessential DC Comics. Like, that page in and of itself, love it. So, well, you got any final thoughts on the book, man?
I would say if you're a fan of traditional DC storytelling, I would say this is a book for you.
Yeah.
I would say if you're not, if you still very well like this book, I think this book was made for a classic, a fan of the classic version of the characters.
Yeah. Tim Sale. That's who I was trying to think of a while ago. Like, it's got a Tim Sale vibe to it.
Interesting.
He's interposed in there somewhere. So, well, is it going to make it to your pull list?
Man, I don't know. I'm interested. I'm probably not going to add it to my pull list just yet. I will, on almost all certainty, pick up issue number 2 at least, and see how that treats me. Because, I mean, I like when Batman and Superman are in the same story, even though this did not depict them in my favorite way. I'm interested in this because, you know, Mark Waid has got a long history of writing good stories, and I've not read anything he's done in a long time. So I would like this to work. It's something else that appeals to me about this book is it's got a very simple heroes versus villain feel to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a little worn out on the crises that are going on in comics today.
Yep.
And everything is a giant catastrophe that any given hero has to fight against. And, you know, I'm longing for just a simple heroes versus villain story that this 100% felt like.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated the simplicity of the storyline, and I would really like to think it's going to continue to stay compelling and stick to that. So I'm definitely going to pick up issue number 2 at least, and it may keep me for quite a run. We'll just see how it goes.
Well, I'm definitely picking up the second issue. I'm kind of like you. I don't know that I'm going to throw this on my pull list just yet. Like, it's very, very well. Like, I'm actively trying to trim my pull list a little bit, because there's stuff that I finally I catch myself reading only because I'm a completist, if that makes any sense. Like, I buy the physical copies. I started this off. I need to see it through, but I just really am not enjoying it as much as I once did, because obviously I did enjoy it, these books, to a certain extent when I was buying, or, you know, at the beginning, or I wouldn't have put it on my pull list. But I've been culling a few things. I've been, like, internally accepting that I don't need to finish this run, and I don't need to spend $4 a book on something that's not bringing me joy. Like, I'm Marie Kondoing the shit out of it. So yeah. I'm trying not to add anything new, because, you know, I'd like to save a little bit of coin while I'm doing it. But this is very tempting because it is Mark Waid. You know, it is Mark Waid writing those, you know, writing that kind of, you know, it feels something feels special about it. Like, Mark Waid knows these DC characters front and back. And I think Mark Waid has written some of his best work at DC, as aggravating as I know he's been with them. So Yeah, this is like, one good kapow kabang away from going on my pull list for definite. We'll see how issue 2 treats me. So
Yeah.
but I am curious about something though, because we started to broach this topic. You mentioned that there has been some really, really good Batman Superman team ups that you have enjoyed better. And as we talk about World's Finest, which that is a Batman and Superman book. I like, what are some of your preferred Batman and Superman team ups? Like, can you give me like 3 examples of that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't use team up. I wouldn't use the word team up. My
Okay.
favorite Batman Superman stories. One is Dark Knight
I knew you were going to.
Returns.
I knew you were going to say
That's
it.
an obvious one. That one I really, really like, and it's not because they fight. It's everything that leads up to the fight. It's the conversations that they have. I really like reading those conversations that Batman and Superman have in that story. Secondly, the Superman animated series did a 3-part World's Finest storyline,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
it's supposedly when they first actually meet, and that's because Batman comes to Metropolis pursuing the Joker, and that's got just some of my absolute favorite interactions of the two characters. And it's Batman coming to town, doesn't like Superman because he is so powerful. Superman doesn't understand why Batman does it the way he does. And there's so many excellent little moments, but they both respect each other. They both understand that they are doing the same things in different ways, I guess is what you would say.
Professional courtesy.
Yeah, so they learn to work together. Superman wants to work with Batman. Batman begrudgingly works with Superman. It's basically how it works out. And then thirdly would be Kingdom Come.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the same reasons, of course, they're late in life, but again, the conversations between the two and the way that story ends, just everything about the characters feels right in that story, and the way they interact. So those are my top 3.
I don't think you and I have ever actually sat down and spoke about Kingdom Come. I know earlier on in the show, before you joined us, we did a Kingdom Come round table basically review, where everybody, Craig and I and the other hosts, Matt and Jerry, all sat down and spoke about it. But I don't think I've ever gone deep into it with you. That's something we're going to have to remedy.
Yeah,
because it's Jesus Christ, that book. There's like 19 different ways you can read it.
Yeah.
So I've got 3. Of course, I would not ask you a question if I wasn't ready to answer it myself. They're all comics. I love that you threw in the Superman the animated series, though. Like, that made me, like, I wasn't even thinking about that. And as much as we give credit and kudos and well-deserved accolades to the Batman animated series, because it is one of the best Batman stories ever, if not the best Batman story ever. Dude, you cannot snub Superman animated series. That is some good stuff.
Yeah.
But the first one on mine is Matt Wagner's Trinity, and this is actually it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all teaming up.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah, I love Matt Wagner. It's basically everything he does, but the relationship and the bonds that you see, and the way that the 3 characters, but especially Batman and Superman, the way that they interact with one another, and they juxtapose each other's faults in that book, is spectacular. If you go back to 1990, there was a World's Finest series that kicked off then, and you had Dave Gibbon and Steve Rude, who wrote a 3-issue mini series called World's Finest. I love Steve Rude's art, man. Like, it is so striking. It's so one of a kind. You won't ever see anything like it. But you see the big 2 join forces to fight their greatest villains. Like, you see the Joker and Lex Luthor, which is something that it's hard to even fathom that team up, but they pulled it off. Like, Dave Gibbon made it happen. and I really appreciated the way that he made that book work. And then last but not least is, and I can already hear you groan. It's just to be fair, but in the most penultimate Batman run, where you get Tom King's run in there, issue 37. It was either 36 and 37 or 37 and 38. Was a two-part series called Double Date, and it was, Batman is getting ready to marry Selena Kyle, and they go on a double date to a fair with Clark and with Lois, and you really see their, like, the friendship of all involved. Like, you see them without, where the greatest thing that they're facing is kind of cold feet. Like, it's Batman's nervousness, and he's trying to talk to his buddy who's been married for a while about what he's doing and what he's feeling, and of course things go awry and they have to jump in and be heroes. But I love that 2-issue series. That to me was one of the more standout moments of Tom King's run, and I love Tom King's run. I think up until issue 50, I think it was incredible. And so this really highlights everything that I like about these two characters, because it was just lighthearted. It found a way to be lighthearted moments, and then it found a way to just hit you right in the throat in other moments. So for a more recent take, that was it for me. I think that's a great 2-issue series. And if you watch the movie Batman and you want to, like, imagine the future that could take, I think it kind of sidelines well with it. Like, it doesn't fit like a puzzle, but if you want to imagine where that could go, I think that's a decent place to go with it. But that's just me. So yeah, I got to use this as an excuse to go look at Steve Root art, so I'm happy. It's about as good as it gets. Well, man, I know that you have been traveling this week, and hopefully you were able to get a little extemporaneous reading done outside of just our roundtable.
Yeah, absolutely. I went down a rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago, and in doing so, I discovered a 6-issue series that came out in 1988. This was from the Epic Marvel line. This is a creator-owned line, short-lived, that Marvel launched back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
That is where one of my favorite comics ever, Martial Law, was born from. Pat Mills and Kevin O'Neill's Martial Law. Well, also from this line was a 6-issue series called The Light and Darkness War. The creative team on this the art is Cam Kennedy. Cam Kennedy is a original 2000 AD alum. Really like Cam Kennedy's art. The writer on this is Tom Beach, brother of Rick Beach.
Huh.
Yeah, I was unfamiliar with Tom Beach.
You and me both. That's kind of weird and cool.
Yeah. So, and real quick, I did, a little bit of research on Tom Beach. He was a lifelong writer. He, wrote poetry. He had some comics that he wrote. He did a lot of contributions to underground comics. He did a little bit of writing for the Big Two. He wrote some Animal Man, amongst some other things. He's written, most recently, I believe he wrote some Star Wars comics. Unfortunately, he passed away from COVID-19.
Oh, really? Oh, it sucks.
Just last month. He died at the age of 80. But anyway, this book, so it's been collected, and this whole series has been collected, and it's somewhat highly regarded because of the way it represents Vietnam veterans. And the story starts off there's a Vietnam veteran who is being taken to the Vietnam War Memorial. The long wall that's got all the victims, the fallen soldiers of the Vietnam War engraved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for his platoon mates, all of which died during an attack, but he lost his legs but survived. And he has the survivor's guilt that a lot of soldiers have. And he's having dreams about them. He's retelling these dreams to his girlfriend as they're leaving the wall. I mean, it really talks about the psychological struggle that this guy is going through. One, the participating in the Vietnam conflict, and two, being, again, the lone survivor of his platoon. Well, then at some point, something happens. He gets into a car wreck and the story changes, and you're not really sure exactly what is going on. But suddenly, first of all, he has his legs back and he is standing, and he's in this desolate, what looks to be like a desert, like Badlands landscape. And there's floating ships made of stone. In these floating ships made of stone are his old platoon mates. So he's reunited with his own platoon mates in this strange environment. Without warning, they find themselves in a conflict with another, what seems to be a group of humanoid monsters in their own floating ship. So they attack. He and his platoon mates successfully destroy the other ship, and they start telling him about the world that they're in. And it is a lightness versus darkness type atmosphere. It's the human beings versus the humanoid monsters that are being led by what appears to be an evil sorcerer. So the story, this first issue sets all this up. The series gained some attention back when it was published because of the way it basically, it's a commentary on, one, how different of a conflict the Vietnam War was, and two, how it affected the soldiers differently when they returned home. I've just started the series, but this first issue, it's just very interesting. It's a very interesting story, and I'm really looking forward to finishing it to get to, how it really portrays this situation with Vietnam. The Vietnam conflict has always been a point of fascination for me. I'm a war buff anyway, but the Vietnam conflict was so unique in American history for so many reasons.
Yep.
From the policy level all the way down to the very human level. So this was an interesting find. I didn't know this existed. I'd never heard of the writer. The fact that this was published in the Epic line is really interesting to me. It doesn't feel like it belongs there at all, frankly.
Yeah.
But hats off to Marvel and stepping outside of the box and letting something like this happen. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this wraps up. And even once it wraps up, I may come back and do a synopsis of the entire line. But you can find these single issues online. I mean, I got the whole run off of eBay for a really good price. There are trade paperbacks of this that are out there as well that are available at a really good price. I wanted to get the original issues because I wanted to see the artwork as it was originally.
Right.
Like on the original paper that was used in '88, as opposed to whatever kind of paper might be used in current day, and whatever kind of editing might have been done, in collecting them. I wanted to see it as it was originally intended. So that's why I bought the single issues instead of the collected paperback. I do know if you buy the collected paperback, there is a forward in there, but from a Vietnam veteran, a Navy man, amongst other things. There's some other things in it that kind of speak to why this is important and how impactful it is. So yeah, that's what I stumbled upon here recently.
Well, that's incredible, and I really hope you do. I hope you do revisit it. I would love to kind of hear how that plays out and how it treated you as a reader, especially with your history with the subject matter and stuff. Have you ever been to the Vietnam Wall?
I have not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it would be heartbreaking.
It is. I've been twice, and I say this as somebody who's not a soldier. I was not enlisted, never been in the military or anything. But one of the things I love about Washington D.C. are the memorials. Well, just the history in general, but the memorials to the history. And the Vietnam Wall is a place that is almost living, breathing grief, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I said I've been twice. I've seen those men that you're talking about. I've sat and watched people who are wearing the Vietnam, they've got the hats that say Vietnam vet, or they've got something on them, symbolizing that they served in Vietnam. And I've seen them looking and searching for the names of people that they knew. And I've seen them find them. I've seen them point. I sat there and it almost felt dirty. Like I remember a few years ago when we went, like I remember watching this kind of, and I felt like a voyeur, watching this incredibly personal moment where it was almost hard. Like it was almost like you were seeing something that you weren't supposed to see. So you wanted to look away. That's how personal it felt. Just that tension was in the air. And for them to be able to distill that from what it sounds like very well in this graphic form is incredibly powerful. And one imagines not easy to do. So I want to get my hands on this and look at it because it's a very heavy subject matter. Because you think about, like you said, that it was a different war in so many ways, none the least of which is because it was televised. You got to see these unfiltered versions of that there are a lot of Vietnam era comics. There are some that are done a lot better than others. And this, from all aspects of what you're saying, it sounds like this is some type of hidden gem that I think, probably the history of that, I'm only assuming, but this is one of those things you got to be thankful for the network, because it sounds like this was the 2000 AD network kicking in, and some people who knew each other doing each other favors to get this published for an unknown writer, like the Pat Mills connection from the 2000 AD world probably kicked in to make this happen. And that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, to come back and tell me about it, tell us about it.
Definitely.
So, and shoot me some, if you find any, as you're reading that, if you find any cool panels or things that you can snap with your pocket computer, shoot them to me, because I want to see what this looks like. More so than what I've seen on Google as you were talking. So I'm going to bring us back up, both the continuity timeline and then back up just in general to a little bit of a more positive note. So last week this book came out, and I picked it up because I didn't know anything about it other than I love the artist. And the artist is Javier Rodriguez, who was most recently on the latest Defenders book. And I thought it was dope. I love his style, so I grabbed it. It doesn't hurt that it's written by Dan Slott. That for a lot of people would have been the draw there. For me, it's not. Not the world's largest Dan Slott fan. Don't have anything against him, but just not a big Superman or not a big Spider-Man mark in general. But he's solid. doesn't necessarily strike my fancy all the time. But the book is called Reckoning War: A Trial of the Watcher. Obviously, it's from Marvel Comics, and I went in with zero to no expectation other than I wanted my eyes to smile because Javier Rodriguez is a beast. Like, the dude is a damn fine artist. And I was pleasantly surprised. Really, really, really pleasantly surprised. This is basically a what if story. Like, this is the ultimate what if story. And I love what if stories because they are so untethered from continuity. And that is something that I enjoy. Like, that's what I like about, you take DC's Black Label stuff right now. You get these really fun stories, and it doesn't matter that there are things in there that just are not connected to the history. It doesn't matter because it's just a fun story. That's always what the what if stories were to me. It was a neat chance for these artists and storytellers to take the history of the Marvel universe, this thing that Jack and Stan and Roy Thomas and the Buscemas and all of them created and crafted in the early 60s, that was so rooted in this definitely happened, and like it's an ongoing thing, it's a living, breathing world, and you don't forget the history of it, and just fiddle with it a little bit to switch some stuff up and see what could have been. And if you've watched the newest Marvel show, the animated series, the What If series, you get a little taste of what that was like, as compared to the film universe, the MCU. And you know how important the Watcher, Uatu, is to all these things. He's a key figure. He's a key role. He's a key player in the mainstream Marvel universe. If you've ever read any Fantastic Four, you know just how damned important Uatu and him breaking his oath was to the history. And this plays with that. This plays with that really, really well. And it's basically a one shot. So you really don't have to have any baggage coming into this other than, some basic encyclopedic knowledge of the Marvel universe that you can get off Wikipedia or just, anything that Fantastic Four, Galactus, that's basically what you got to know to go in this. In this, the first opening page is you have the Watchers, the race of the Watchers. They are firemen carrying Uatu into a room. They've got Uatu basically bound, and because they have found out that Igor, especially his dad, has found out that Uatu's interfered. Like, he did the thing he wasn't supposed to do. He injected himself into mankind. He helped save the universe, and he changed the arc of the universal history, which for our heroes in the mainline, I don't know if you want to call it the 616 anymore, but that universe really benefited them. But he broke his oath as a Watcher and basically pissed off his daddy. And they've got my man bound and gagged with his giant head, and they stick him into this really Kirby-esque inspired massage chair, for lack of a better term, with a giant eyeball attached to it. It's called the Seat of Knowledge, the seat of all knowledge. And they strap him into this thing, and they essentially clockwork orange Uatu. They make him watch the ultimate what if, which is what if Uatu had not have injected himself and interfered and stopped the world, or stopped the world from being destroyed. And in that initial moment, that the first kind of big moment where he does that was, of course, the coming of Galactus in the famed Jack Kirby drawn Fantastic Four series. And they he is convinced if he had not have injected himself into this world, then the world would have been destroyed. But that's, let's see how the what if story unfolds. They take him out of it, and Galactus, in fact, does come, and he sends his herald, Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., man on the wall. He phones up the Fantastic Four and says, "Hey, we're getting these readings, giant radioactive waves. This seems like your world. That Mr. Fantastic, we need you to figure this out, or we're gonna warm up the nukes. Like, we're getting ready to solve this problem before it starts." Which, this is set in the 60s, and mutually assured annihilation was a thing then, as it is now, which is something we should all be a little bit worried about, because we're back in the Cold War. But that's a digression that I don't need to go down. But so, Reed Richards is on the phone with him. Is like, well, hang on. We don't know what this is. We're going to make first contact. And he opens up the top of the Baxter building, and this giant telescope booms out, and he's taking a look, and he sees the Silver Surfer, the Herald of Galactus, coming barreling in to the Earth's atmosphere. And so they all step out onto the roof, and they're going to greet him. And now Reed's like, hey, this is first contact with us, but it's also first contact for him. We don't know that this dude's a threat. We don't know who he is. So let's be on our best behavior. And of course, who is the man that you want when you need a really refined, silky smooth meeting? Who's the guy that you absolutely under no circumstances could do without when we're dealing with the ultimate diplomatic situation? Of course it's Ben Grimm, right? Like just Mr. Finesse. No, not even in the least. So our buddy Ben, just street level New York, walks up to the Silver Surfer and is like, hey, Chrome Dome, like, welcome to the planet. Don't wreck this up. What are you doing? You want a hot dog? Just pure distilled New York. And the Silver Surfer is like, oh man, like I sensed all of this massive technology, this advanced stuff, but all I see is you guys. All I see is this low level primitive society, and this really pisses Ben off, and Ben just clobbers him, knocks him 6 waves from Sunday. The dude goes blasting all the way across the river, like lands in Brooklyn. But while he's barreling through the air, assumedly Silver Surfer flips a switch and contacts his boss, and Galactus just comes out of nowhere, just shows up, and he is ready to do what Galactus does. He is the devourer of worlds. He's going to. And if you remember the stories, this is about the time that Uatu would have injected himself into the situation. He would have helped solve this to save the planet, but he can't. In the original story, Uatu he basically did the thing where you tilt the pinball machine if to go old school with it, because I played some pinball this past week in an arcade and it was fun. But while the Silver Surfer was going through the air, he moved things a little bit. So the surfer landed on the roof of Alicia, Ben Grimm's longtime love interest, landed on her apartment. But in this world, he couldn't do that. So Silver Surfer just lands on some poor schmuck's car and wrecks it, and doesn't even have the decency to leave like his information. It doesn't have insurance, just barrels off after he's crashed this dude's pretty red vehicle. It goes from there to just really show you how nothing that the Fantastic Four can do really is a threat to Galactus. Miss Fantastic is doing her level-headed best to keep some of Galactus's machinery from connecting, and he realizes that her power is based on sight, so he just laser beams her in the face and shuts that shit down. And so she's blind now. She can't see, so she can't do anything. Silver Surfer jumps back into the picture, and he squares up with Johnny, and Johnny tries to go supernova to end it, and just scars himself horribly and barely puts a dent in the Silver Surfer, like barely scratches the surface of the dude, because he's just got the power cosmic is just that. Galactus unleashes this little purple and green, obviously a villain thing called the extermination droid that just starts to wallop Ben Grimm and puts the thing back on his toes. Well, meanwhile, all this is happening, you might be thinking, where's Reed? Well, Reed has gone back and has into the recesses of the Baxter building and is throwing together technology to the best as he can. He's dissecting Galactus's stuff as fast as he can, because he realizes that nothing that they have is effective. And again, this is where Uatu would have injected himself. He would have put himself in there to help shift the tide a little bit, but he's not there. And so the world around them starts melting, and Ben Grimm gets the rocks knocked out of him. And again, Johnny Storm is just disfigured, and he's burned himself out, and Sue is blind, and the radiation around Mr. Fantastic starts to melt him. And he just, I think it's a good throwback to the book we just read. If you remember Rita Farr from the television show, how her skin just kind of globulates and falls off of her. That's what's happening to him. He's losing the cohesiveness of his rubbery skin, and it's basically melted plastic, melted rubber off the side of his face, just horribly disfigured. But just in the nick of time, and without any help whatsoever, any injection from Uatu, he comes up with the ultimate nullifier, to which he is able to blast the shit out of Galactus and destroy him. And that's not what we saw happen in the original series. And so the Watcher, Uatu, while he's watching this and he's just freaking out, and just like, I wasted my time. I broke my vow for naught. But they just got to the same place that they could have been. So it's not really that big of a deal, because now they're everything's right back to where it was. So but Igor, Uatu's dad, is like, no, we can see what happens next. Like, let's keep watching this. Let's check into this world and see what your involvement, you breaking the oath, did. And we all know how the world turned out in the 616. But in this world, the technology that they gleaned from the leftover bits and pieces of Galactus's ship and from things left behind, they were able to re-terraform arid desert planets, and they were able to clean the skies of just smog infested cities, take all the trash out of the oceans. They made the world a better place, and essentially preempted global warming and the hole in the ozone layer and all of these things. And Uatu can't look away, because like I said, they've got him clockwork orange. They've got like his eyelids pried open with these little small teeny tiny grappling hooks on his giant big ass watching head. And he just realizes how wrong he was. And how in this alternate universe, the heroes, the Fantastic Four, got bumped and bruised and scraped, but they survived. And if he hadn't have done what he did, maybe the world would have been a better place. And so while they do this, while they've broken him down, the Watchers leave and they go back to their perches, to their little nether realm where they're going to watch. And they're essentially patting themselves on the back for proving themselves right. But there's a figure crowded in the shadows that just says, "Hey, this sounds like my cue to do some stuff." And I'm not going to tell you who it is, because it's the last panel and you should go pick it up. But this is going to be continued in the Fantastic Four number 42, which I'm going to have to pick up. I'm not reading the Fantastic Four, but I want to know what happens next. I need to see, what this clandestine storied figure who's been missing from the Marvel universe for some time is going to set in motion. So look, this is how you do a comic, right? Like, especially in the Marvel universe. If you want me to go pick up a series that I'm not reading in the middle of a long form run, you just got me to pick up Fantastic Four number 42, and I'm not reading it. I don't know what's happening in that story. And I've never been a collector of Fantastic Four. I've got the omnibus with the Jack Kirby stuff. What the hell more do I need? But apparently I need this, because I need to know where this is going to go. It's a fun story, man. I can't say enough about Javier Rodriguez's art. He has got this, again, retro, but not in the same kind of retro that you see from Dan Mora. His stuff is like, he spins the shit out of the color wheel and pulls out all of this neon, like blacklight looking, incredible stuff in his coloring. It is surreal. His figures have a really polished but not photo referential. This is just really fun cartooning. There's a little bit of Trad Moore just in the edges. It doesn't have that. Not everything is rounded in the way that you see Trad Moore. Not everything is exaggerated, but it is very much like a reimagining of 60s pop art. And I dig the shit out of it. Like, it is perfect for these kind of stories. Perfect for the otherworldly stuff that you saw in Defenders, where he breaks he plays with the mechanics of the medium. It's just, the dude is very quickly becoming an artist that will make me buy a comic. And I can't get enough of it. The way that he draws these Kirby inventions is just sickening. It's stupid. It's so stupid because it's so good. It's ridiculous. I can't keep my eyes off of it. So go pick up The Reckoning War, Trial of the Watcher. It is well worth your time. Again, it's one shot. What do you got to lose? It's just fun stuff. It's a what if story. It's the ultimate what if story. And it just made me smile like a nerd while I was reading it. So I'm about it.
So this is like legitimately a what if story?
Yeah. Yep.
Huh.
It is a what if story. Just they didn't put what if. It's just called the Reckoning War. Like they.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, that's my question. So it's not a legitimate what if story. I
No,
mean,
no,
it's
no, no.
just
Yeah,
like,
yes, yeah. It is a what if story in spirit, if not in name. But that what if is not on the cover page.
huh.
So
Okay.
they should have called it a what if story. That's the best advice I could have given them. I could have made Marvel money. This is why they should send me ideas. They should hire me to do things. No, dude, yeah, I have no idea why they didn't call it a what if story, because it's it very clearly it is a what if story. Like if you read,
So it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the current storyline.
assumedly so. So like it takes place. Uh, I am guessing that the world that Uatu and all of them are inhabiting is the current storyline, because that's how it's folding into the Fantastic Four, the number 42. Like assumedly all of this is taking place in current continuity, but they are showing him what would have happened if he hadn't have injected himself into the actual Marvel continuity. So like it plays in both worlds. So part of the story that he's not watching is modern times, like, or at least is the Marvel universe as we're supposed to know it, as connected to the original Marvel universe and all the way up through current events. But like I said, they strap him to a chair and they pry open his eyes and they make him watch the what if story of what if he hadn't have broken his vow. Um, yeah, dude, it's nuts. It's just stupid. It's stupid fun.
Mm.
They really should have stuck a what if on the front of this thing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's. Did you read the Defender stuff? Are you familiar with Javier Rodriguez's stuff?
Doesn't ring a bell. No.
Oh, dude, I'll send you some stills. You gotta see this. You gotta.
Hmm.
It's so cool. Like this
Hmm.
like he was made for blacklight posters. You can almost see the velvet behind it. It's
Hmm.
just it's that good stuff. So, well, that's my book, man. That's my book of the week. I hope I have enticed you and some of the folks who are listening to this at home to go check it out. It's fun stuff, and I'm going to be on the lookout for yours. Definitely, that's a story that's gonna punch me in some feels. It sounds like so. If you have enjoyed this, our fine folks at home who are listening to this, again, apologize for being a few days late. It happens. We still made our once a week goal, and we will be back here hopefully the same time that you would regularly listen to this on Sunday. And hopefully we'll have our brother Craig back and be able to drop some love on him and just hear him talk about some comics, which will bring us all joy. If you would like more of this, maybe you want to inject yourself into a little community, you can join our Facebook group and kind of see what we're posting and talking about on there. Some cool stuff's going down. People are sharing memes, which is a thing that people enjoy, makes people laugh. It's always fun. News bits, stills of things that they're reading. It's cool to see what everybody else is up to and doing in the wide world of geekery. I mean, it's video games, it's everything. You can check out some of the stuff that we're looking at on our Instagram and our Twitter feeds. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. You can follow us. Or if you got a project maybe you're working on that you're doing some cool stuff and you want us to see it, you can always shoot us an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And we'll see the email. We'll be poor in responding to the email, but we will see it. So because we busy. We're living that modern life, son. It's hard. It's hard to keep up with everything. So that's all I got for the week, man. You ready to kind of land this plane?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, how about we do that the way that we always do, and you tell me about something that you're going to grab off the shelf tomorrow. I mean, assumedly tomorrow. It comes out tomorrow.
So something that comes out tomorrow that I'm looking forward to is Wolverine patch #1. This is a 5-issue series from Marvel, obviously, with artwork by Federico Vesentini. And I guess Adam Kubert is doing the covers on these.
Nice.
The writer on this looks like it's Larry Hama. I mean, there's the credits are reported differently between Ben Piercy and Larry Hama. Maybe they're co-writing it, but anyway, this takes place back in Wolverine's Matterport days, where he is Wolverine is supposedly dead, and he is masquerading as a local man working for Tiger as a basically a bodyguard in Madripoor. So this is going back to that storyline. This is the first storyline that I ever read as a comic book fan as a child. When I started buying the Wolverine comics, this is what was going on at the time. So my interest in this is very much peaked just because of the association I have with this, if nothing else. I'm looking forward to this one.
This is the plant that there's seeds that grew into baby Matt.
Yeah, it admittedly, it's going to be hard to read a patch story that's not illustrated by John Buscema.
Yeah,
but I'm going to give it my best shot.
It'll be worth it. It'll be fun stuff, dude. Some of my favorite stuff. Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. I know I've talked about it on the show, but like I love the Marvel Comic Presents run, and I love when they reprint some of that stuff. Or it's just shown there originally for the first time. Those Madripoor days and Tiger, those are some really well written comics. Just really fun.
Yeah, it was.
And I love that is the well from which you as a person are drawn.
Yeah, sure was.
All right, well, our friends over at Scout Comics have a couple of new books coming out this next week, but I wanted to highlight one of them just because the cover of it really caught my eye. And the story is called Beyond the Beyond. This is a new #1 coming from those fine folks. It is written by Christian Tropiano. Gian Fernando does the art. Color Lab is doing the colors, and Joel Rodriguez is doing the letters on that. So this essentially, the short and dirty of it is that this individual named Nova Vega was rendered an orphan after her legendary space explorer parents they vanished on their final mission to find Earth. Now she's 16 years old, and she is living on a mining colony ruled by Omni, a repressive and robotic corporation. Her inability to follow the rules of society has put her at odds with the older brother and guardian Cyrus, and Cyrus resents the life that his parents led and wholly has committed himself to conforming to Omni and his rules. When an argument between the siblings go too far, Nova decides to enact on her long-awaited plan to explore the alien world from which her parents have never returned, and she sets off to go beyond the beyond, which is where the title comes from. Cool stuff. I love space exploration, love the brother and sister aspect of it. Scout has always done me well. I really enjoy the stuff that those fine folks put out. For a small publisher, they're doing big things. So check out Beyond the Beyond. Nice. If you do nothing else. I mean, hopefully you do other things, but you should do that too. So, well, man, I know it is late. It's getting there. It's not like us to be recording at this hour. The sun is set behind me, and I think we should go ahead and call this thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we hope everybody has enjoyed this. Come back and see us next time. Go hug your family. Go tell them how important they are, and then go love some comics.
Absolutely. Quick correction. Oh. I have read a comic with Glenn Fabry's internal art. I just not had done one that is painted. I wanted to correct myself. I wanted to clarify myself on that.
You were going to lose sleep over that tonight, weren't you?
I was. That's like, I don't want people because Glenn Fabry did internal art for some Slain comics, and I couldn't stand the thought that people would think I forgot about the Slain comics.
I didn't realize he did the internal art. I was looking it up and I saw some of the Slain covers he did, and I was just like, hey, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I didn't realize he done
some black and white internal artwork and some of the Slain stuff he did.
Well, that's the fucking hotness.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, all right, brother. You have a good night.
All right.
See you later.